We've got Matt Waxler here. We're at the Wheels Through Time Museum. They've got an exhibit, a section of the museum here called Homemade in America.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Matt's going to walk us through some of this because he knows all the details on these things.
Well, yeah, and the exhibit has been here about 2 years, and you know what the Homemade America really represents is kind of a time and maybe technological ingenuity where the guys were just using what they had to make life a little bit easier. And of the machines here, and there's about probably 8 or 9 real great examples of the, the life and times of what was going on back then. The 1915 ice saw up here is a great example. This was found up near, I believe, Crater Lake, Oregon, and what they did, pre-refrigeration, they'd cut big blocks of ice, pack them in sawdust, stuff them in the ice chest. Maybe you'd have ice till June or July. So this was a fella's way to make life a little bit easier. He took the drive off of the rear wheel and actually ran the chain to the saw. So the way this would work, when you crank up the motor, you'd have it in neutral, and then actually when you wanted to start cutting ice and you see your big teeth here, you'd roll it up to the lake, you'd pop your saw off to right here, you pop that thing into gear and just lean it forward and start cutting. So this thing, as rusty as it is a heck of a survivor and a great example of a way to just make things a little bit more efficient, make life a little bit easier, and still get the things done that you needed to do.
It's amazing ingenuity, isn't it?
It's unbelievable, really. Just the idea and the whole concept behind this. It works very similar to, your old locomotives. I think they call that a reciprocating drive. Not 100%, but they, when they pulled this sprocket here off of the wheel, made it not a drivable machine, but they popped it onto the saw here, and it works just like your old locomotive drive. So, pretty neat setup.
And what do we have right here in front of you?
This one here is one of the very few instances where Harley-Davidson actually sold one of their motors as a proprietary engine. They sold it to Worthington. 1931, and you're right around the Great Depression era there, and you're figuring that all pennies are priceless. So really, anything that they could do to generate a few extra dollars was going to pretty much going to happen. And, as you kind of go through the Great Depression, you see Harley drop from, goodness, I think 25,000 bikes a year all the way down to 1933. The low year was, I believe, just over 3,000 bikes. So you're cutting by 800%, and it's a big cut. And anyway, or not 800%, 90 something percent. Anyway. So stuff like the Worthington grass cutter here with the Harley engine, 1931, it was just that time. We've also got a few other pieces in here that are motorcycle depression era pieces, and I kind of consider the motorcycle depression to be just right along with the Great Depression and maybe the few years afterwards. But motorcycle depression era stuff where Harley was doing things very out of the ordinary for what was going on, just to stay in business. And you look at what a tall call it was to be able to support an entire, Milwaukee has very much been Harley-Davidson for a long time, and that was the major industry there. And to support, not support a city, but to keep the economic situation going and to keep people employed while only making 3,000 bikes. It's a tall call. So we're pretty fortunate to still have them around, being how it was in the Depression.
True.
The mining cart as well. This is a great story, and another prime example of Homemade America and what this. I'll say it's a bike. How it started as a bike anyway. It started out in 1926. Harley built what they called a B model, and the B model was a single to get lightweight riders, women riders, and young riders into motorcycling, into Harley-Davidson specifically. So they built the B model. It was an 80-mile-per-gallon single. So they ran the B model for about 3 years. What somebody did with this one, and this is the first year, it's in 1926, they pulled the fork off and cut the rear section of the frame, and they actually put together a mining cart chassis and drop the middle of the motorcycle chassis right in. So it is a mining cart. It's all-wheel drive. It's got 2 transmissions, fan cooled, and it's got a big old headlight in the front. So I suppose you've been able to see wherever you're going, but it's just an awesome piece. And this was also found up near Crater Lake, Oregon, in the Davis gold mine. Actually, the Davis mine collapsed. A portion of it did in the 30s. It was excavated in the 70s, and when they excavated the mine in the 70s, they actually found this 100% intact with the rider still on it. So
oh no!
he didn't make it as well as the mining cart did, but it was kind of a great piece to the story there. But 2 transmissions, 9 forward speeds, 3 reverses. The thing will go pretty good. It's quick. It'll probably run 40 miles an hour altogether. So,
amazing.
Semi-dangerous, being that when we've driven it, we haven't driven it on tracks, so it doesn't steer. It doesn't steer real well. But it's just a lot of fun, and we've had it out from time to time. It's heavy, but still pretty fun to ride. It does great wheelies. And the neatest part of the Homemade America exhibit to me would be the airplane. The airplane, it's called Katybug, and the plane was built in 1927. It was built by a 17-year-old named Wilson Miller, and what Wilson Miller did, he actually took a contest application home, entered the contest, and the contest was for airplane plans. It was a popular mechanics type of contest. I'm not sure exactly who put it on. And with the $100 grand prize that he ended up winning for his plans, he built 3 airplanes. This one here is the only one in original condition. It's the only one that's left, and it is also in original condition. And he used a real similar motor to what was in the jet ski. He used a mid to early Harley 20s engine, and set up his own gear reduction drive on that. It's all canvas and wood and a little bit of sheet metal on the front. The cockpit is tiny. I'm a little guy and I'm not fitting in that cockpit. There's no way. So he must have been a pretty tiny fella as well. But the whole trick on this is the gear reduction, which is all handmade right here. This guy hand cast up this piece, and you see your sprocket shaft is right here. It runs right off of here. So if you attach the propeller straight to the sprocket shaft, if your prop's spinning too fast, it's kind of like it's spinning too slow. So you're not getting the right amount of pull out of it. So what he did was he ran a maybe like a 1-to-3 ratio to actually slow that propeller down to its optimal speed. I don't know how you figure out a propeller's optimal speed. Not a physics major, but anyway. Pretty interesting piece, and this whole setup is what made this thing actually able to fly, and it did fly. Bike still has the motor still has compression, and you can hear it there. And when you close down the compression releases, if you popped it through, it does want to go. So it's got spark, it's got compression. All we need is a little bit of fuel. We can probably have this thing off the ground.